Greetings, cultivators from around the world. Jordan River back at you in your garden with you with more GrowCast, fully viroid free. Today we have Dr. Coco back on the line. You know Dr. Coco, you love Dr. Coco, and we're jumping right into Habitat September. We're talking all about environment. We're talking beyond environment into the habitat of your gardening space. It's a really cool month that I have planned for you, and Dr. Coco's episode is really strong. We talk about environment, of course. We talk about DLI and VPD and CO2 and a bunch of cool stuff. You're going to love today's episode. It's very eye-opening. But before we jump into it with the great Dr. Coco, shout out to Urban Roots Garden Supply in Tampa, Florida. I love this hydro store. We were just down there for our Living Soil Masterclass taught by Queen of the Sun, and Urban Roots had our back. This is an awesome store. It's really, really clean. They've got an awesome selection, very, very knowledgeable staff, and they hosted us for our Living Soil Masterclass. It was a really great time. The space is really nice and well decorated. They've got some cool merch. They let us leave with an Urban Roots shirt. And again, the selection is high quality, got tons and tons of options, whatever you need for your grow. And the staff was extremely friendly and knowledgeable. They stuck around and took the class with us. That was an awesome class. Shout out to everybody who came out to the Tampa class. Really, really great to teach living soil down there with Queen of the Sun, Alexandria Irons. You can find all of our venues at growcastpodcast.com/classes. We're in San Diego and Denver and Buffalo and Toronto. So go and grab tickets and come on down to the next venue. Thank you to Urban Roots Garden Supply for being our Tampa venue. They support growers, home growers, and grow rights. That's what we love to see. They're a small business. They're doing great down there. So if you're in the Florida area, go ahead and make the extra trip. Vote with your dollar, and shout out to Urban Roots Garden Supply. And be sure to check out our next classes at growcastpodcast.com/classes. I hope to see you there. It's really great to talk to you growers in person, and I can't wait to meet you, smoke some of your buds, and hang out all together. That's it for now, though. Let's get into it with Dr. Coco. Thank you for listening, and enjoy the show. Hello, podcast listeners. You are now listening to GrowCast. I'm your host, Jordan River, and I want to thank you for tuning in again today. Before we get started, as always, I urge you share this show, turn someone on to growing, tell them about GrowCast on Spotify. That's the best way to find us, and see all of the action that we do at growcastpodcast.com/action. You'll find Seedco there, the master classes, membership, all the fun stuff, everything going on in the GrowCast universe. Thank you for being part of the GrowCast community. Today, we have a show favorite back on the line. It is September. It is Habitat September, everybody, covering all things environment and beyond that, you know, the actual habitat that your plant resides in. It means a lot to the plant. It means a lot to you and your life. And that's what we're going to explore all month long. And as I said, return guest Dr. Coco on the line. What's up, Dr. Coco?
Hey, Jordan River. It's a pleasure to be back with you as always.
Yeah,
I love this sort of topic of habitat and thinking about the conditions in which we grow our plants. And we've got a pretty sort of interesting habitat. A lot of us do, at least as indoor growers, sort of creating and manipulating our own habitats, particularly for the plants.
Right. Yeah. More control, less control. We're going to get into all of that, changing at scale.
Yeah. Well, the need to control, it's like you're in charge because it's not just going to happen naturally, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Dr. Coco, of course, cocoforcannabis.com. They're starting up the Plant Training Grow Challenge. We're going to be getting into all of that. But first, in this episode, Dr. Coco, we got to circle back a little bit, man, because we did an episode not too long ago where we covered a couple of things that pertain to environment, a couple of buzzwords. And I've been getting a lot of questions about these topics, and I still feel like I don't have a full understanding, where sometimes I need to talk to a guest like you or another expert guest 3 or 4 times to like really wrap my head around it.
Yeah.
And those two things specifically are VPD, which I feel like I understand pretty well, but then also DLI has been coming up all the time, man. DLI, Daily Light Integral. Questions have been popping up in my AMAs, and I remember you saying that it's basically a misconception what DLI's common conception is, but then I didn't quite wrap my head around what it actually is. So let me frame it up like this, Dr. Coco. Can I maybe set the stage and say what most growers think it is? And then you tell.
Sure.
So most growers, when they talk about DLI, I shouldn't say most, but this is a common conception I see, is that this is basically the plant's light limit for the day. The plant can absorb X amount of photons. It can absorb X amount of hours of light, whatever it may be. And then it basically doesn't need any more. And you kind of see it go to sleep, they argue. And it's the plant's maximum capacity for light. You say that's not exactly true, right?
Yeah, that's not true at all.
Well, hit me then. So what is the misconception?
That part of it's not true at all. DLI is a measurement. It's not a limit.
Okay.
So the DLI is the measurement of how much light the plant receives in 24 hours.
That's it?
And you typically measure it in terms of moles. Whereas PPFD, what we're sort of more commonly used to in thinking about the dosage of light, is PPFD. PPFD is the amount of light the plants get per second. And DLI is the amount of light plants get per 24 hours.
Did you say that before? Because that's really easy to understand.
Yeah.
We're applying DLI as some sort of plant attribute, when in reality, it's a data point for how much light is being put on your grow space.
Yeah. Now, there's often minimums where you can have a minimum DLI. And if you fail to get that level of light, the plant, the organism that you're trying to grow is just not going to survive. Right?
Oh, that makes sense.
There's a minimum DLI in order to get the plant enough energy. But maximums, in terms of limits, it's going to be better. I mean, in a certain sense, there's a maximum DLI, but it's not defined as a 24-hour period. There is no sort of 24-hour limit in the plant that controls photosynthesis. So C3 plants like cannabis are limited by their ability to uptake oxygen or carbon dioxide in that moment, to process the light that they're getting in that moment. So the limits, as we measure them for like the amount of light that plants can process, is defined by PPFD, the amount of light that they can receive per second. And it's relative to the amount of carbon dioxide that's available to the plant to process that light. There's sort of a relationship in terms of the light limit with the amount of carbon dioxide. If there's more carbon dioxide, plants can process more light. If there's less carbon dioxide, then that limit goes less. Now, there's also a light interval, like how long the lights are going to be on.
Mm-hmm.
And if you take sort of the PPFD limit and multiply it by the amount of time that you can leave lights on, like, for example, during the flowering period, where you can only leave lights on for 12 hours if you're growing photoperiod plants. Well, one of the advantages that autoflowers, for example, have is you can leave the light on longer. Mm-hmm. So you can effectively increase the DLI for autoflowers during the flowering period, which means that, if an autoflower and a photoperiod plant were both going to be 8 weeks in flower, you'd be able to provide more energy to the autoflowers over those 8 weeks.
Yes.
At the same PPFD, right? At the same sort of density of light per second, because you'd be able to run the lights for longer durations every day. So one of the ways, and we notice at scale that, grown that way, autoflowers will yield more than photoperiod plants. And the explanation for that is the longer DLI. But the way you came at this, and the way a lot of growers, I think you did a good job sort of summarizing the perspective of a lot of growers, is that, it's sort of like you eating, like you have a limit to how much you can eat in a day. And when you reach that limit, like you're full and maybe even lethargic or whatever, right? You've reached sort of your limit.
We definitely personify our plants. We definitely look at this happy little guy, this sad, it's like he's full. He's fat and happy and slow.
Yeah, there's nothing really sort of like that for plants. Like they'll continue to photosynthesize as long as the light's shining on them. And, as long as they have their nutrients, their water, their carbon dioxide, all the rest of those sort of variables are in place. There's no sort of thing that happens every 24 hours and then resets for the plants in terms of their ability to use light or process light in photosynthesis.
Okay, well then I would like to dig into two things really quickly right there, if I could just interject. Okay. Because the reason people have this perception, and this is something we went over before, I believe, as well, you got a room full of 6 different cultivars, and one of them goes to sleep a little bit earlier than all the rest. And they think, oh, this cultivar needs less light. I think that you and I had discussed, and your theory was that's just genetics, that plants know when the lights are about to kick off. They tend to droop their leaves. You can see them kind of go to sleep. And some simply go to sleep a little bit sooner than others. Yep. So that is your kind of take on that?
And they can be reacting to different sort of issues. Going to sleep may also be that they're running into a little bit of a limit that's putting them into a photoprotective response. So dropping leaf angle is one of the things that plants will do when light is becoming sort of when there's some other factor that's limiting their ability to process the amount of light that they're receiving.
Sure. They're trying to angle away from the light. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, if they're drying out maybe a little bit, you'll see the plants droop. If they don't have enough carbon dioxide, potentially, you could see that response in plants. But assuming that all the other variables are in place, plants will definitely develop a 24-hour rhythm. If the lights are coming on and going off every day at the same time, plants will anticipate that and, they'll expect it. And when it changes, that's a little bit stressful for plants too. Mm-hmm. Either when it changes, like the lights don't come on when the plants expect them to, or the lights stay on longer than the plants thought they were going to.
Just like a human, man. I mean, can you imagine if you went to sleep and got up at the same time every day like your plants do? You feel so healthy. I don't know if someone listening has tried that. If you have an erratic schedule like I do, and then you actually get on a schedule, your circadian rhythms just love it. Like that is really interesting how plants react the same way. Could we maybe get into some basics about plants going to sleep? Because this is something you've talked about before. We'll be right back to the interview, but before that, the Foop, baby. Shout out to the Foop. Go to thefoop.com, just like it sounds. And you can check out all of their amazing products, from the mist to the clone gel to their amazing organic nutrients, certified organic nutrients. This is what I used on my last run. Absolutely loved how the flavor and aroma came out, the trichome density. Foop is where it's at. Plus, they've got a new product. That's right, the Bloom Pack. You guys know the Veg Pack. Well, they've also got the Bloom Pack now. What does it include? It comes with 1 bottle of Bloom 1, a bottle of Bloom 2, and a bottle of the sweetener. Everything your plants need to flourish while flowering. No additives you need in there. It's got everything. It's got silica. It's got humic acids. It's got all the macro and micronutrients. It's got mycorrhiza. It's got all sorts of biology in there for you. Foop is certified organic by OMRI and now also the CDFA. Fully organic, works great in all media, feeds your biology, and you're going to want to check out the Foop. The Bloom Pack is really, really nice if you're a soil grower. Maybe you're in that pot of soil and you're running out of some of the food that you need to get you through the flower cycle, and you don't want to add anything too salty or anything that's going to kill your biology. Well, use Foop. You can use Foop right on top of that. The plants are going to love it. The worms are going to love it. You're going to love it. It's available in 1-gallon sizes on Foop's website, also in a quart size at Amazon. You can find Foop on Amazon by going to amazon.com/Foop. That brings you right there. Or even better, just get it at thefoop.com. And always use code GROWCAST at thefoop.com for 15% off. So that's a better price there, especially when you use code GROWCAST at thefoop.com. Be healthy, go organic, use Foop, grab a Bloom Pack today, get your flowers smelling right with that amazing fish poop power. Thefoop.com, code GROWCAST. All right, without further ado, let's get back to the interview. Could we maybe get into some basics about plants going to sleep? Because this is something you've talked about before, quote, going to sleep. That there are certain processes that plants prefer to take care of or take care of during these dark cycles. But also, if you're vegging under a 24-hour light, I believe you said they take care of these processes under the light.
Right.
Can you just kind of explain how that works?
They don't necessarily prefer. So there's something called like the dark cycle, the Calvin cycle in photosynthesis, which is better referred to as the light independent cycle, because it can operate whether or not light is shining on the plant. And then there's the light dependent cycle in photosynthesis that can only happen when the light is shining on the plants.
Sure.
Plants will respond to light. They move, sugars and nutrients and other things around themselves in response to a regularly occurring light pattern, basically. But it's not necessarily that some aspect of production isn't going to be able to take place if you run them under 24-hour light. Most cannabis strains during vegetative growth show sort of remarkable resiliency to be able to tolerate 24-hour growth.
Yeah, right.
And do better than shorter day length. I mean, they grow more. Data's a little bit sketch on this, but what the data seems to show is that there's diminishing returns for those extra hours of light.
Yeah, because I was going to say, I remember you saying you're a fan of letting them sleep a little bit, but you're saying that the data is kind of still out on that one?
Yeah, I do. I think that there's an advantage of creating a 24-hour rhythm to the plant. If you are on 24-hour full, the plant doesn't know, whether it's day or night. There is no 24-hour rhythm. And you will start to establish one only when you introduce sort of darkness to the plant. And maybe you're going to do that only by giving them 12 hours of darkness suddenly when you flip them to flowering or something. And I think that that's pretty stressful for plants. I think having a rhythm to their day helps. But again, there's not a ton of scientific evidence to really support that. This is one of the ongoing sort of debates amongst growers. And I do believe, if you're vegging under 18 hours of light, you're going to be really efficient. If you veg under 20 hours of light, your plants are going to grow a little bit more than if they grow under 18 hours of light. But the amount of growth that you get for those additional 2 hours is like less than the amount of growth that you got for like all the other light that you've added up to that point.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's diminishing marginal returns.
Wow.
And if you go from like 20 to 22, yeah, they're going to grow a little bit more, but they're not going to fully grow sort of what we would expect, like 2 hours more per day. But you're still paying the electricity for that 2 hours more per day. So in terms of like, one of the main aspects of efficiency is shortening the veg cycle. And that's true if you're conditioning the climate, especially if today is sort of, climate day or climate month, and we're thinking about habitat. We're conditioning the climate 24 hours a day, and we're only sort of ants for 18 hours a day. Depending on how much you're doing for conditioning the climate, maybe it's worth, shortening the veg cycle, taking a day or two off of the veg cycle by increasing the growth during the 24-hour cycle every day.
Yeah, absolutely.
So a lot of things, if you really want to dial in efficiency, it's going to depend on how much you're paying for conditioning your climate. If all you're doing is running an exhaust fan, then it's probably better to have a slightly longer veg time and make more efficient use of your light. But if you're running AC and dehumidifiers and supplementing carbon dioxide in your space and doing all of that, then maybe it's in your benefit to sort of shorten it as much as possible because there will be energy savings there.
Really good point. Or even what cultivar you end up choosing, right? You take a look at the way some of these cultivars veg and the speed between genetic, from genetic to genetic. Yeah. That is a really interesting idea, is shortening that veg time for maximum efficiency.
Yeah, but at what point does increasing your electrical bill sort of make sense to shorten that veg time, right? And so that's sort of the balance that you have to draw out there.
Yeah, depends on your goals, and it depends on your situation in life, right? You're in a really interesting place, and we will circle back around to VPD, I promise, but this is a good segue. I want to go here. You're in an interesting place because you're firing up two very different grows, right? One at home and one at scale.
Yeah, exactly. I'm finally starting my home grow again. Man, it's been since April since I've had
holy shit,
plants in my tent. And
rock and roll, man. That's got to feel good.
Oh, it's like, a little giddy feeling. Like, I mean, it's fun. I mean, I didn't realize how much I missed it until I got the seeds out. I'm starting to I'm growing some seeds I got from you too. So it's going to be fun.
Oh, fuck yeah. That Stankanilla, that pack you picked up at the San Diego meetup. Shout out San Diego, October 1st. We're down there for a class. Come and check it out, everybody. Fucking hit me up. DM me up.
I've got that one right here, dude. I got it. All I had was a little wrapper and it said J River on it. And there was one seed inside. And I remember exchanging seeds with you, and I had to call you up and ask you what the hell this was. But yeah, I agree. I think it's the Stankanilla that I traded you one of my Afghan cherries for.
That's right. I don't know. I feel like I was a little bit jilted or something. I remembered exactly what both of our crosses were off the top of my head. You know how stoned everyone was at that event? I was like, damn, where's my compliment? He was like, yeah, this bag has nothing on it. And I just went back there. It was a badass day. Shout out to everybody who came down, all the members. And then I remember I gave you some of the Fem Stankanilla, which is the Stankosaurus. People love that Stankosaurus, man. People are freaking out about that one. And it was Stankosaurus crossed with vanilla frosting, I believe.
Yeah, no, I'm game. Well, dude, I decided to grow. So if you're feeling all hurt about that, you should feel better about the fact that I decided that I was going to grow it as one of my fork plants just because it had your name on this little piece of like basically trash.
All right, there you go.
And there was a seed inside of it. I'm like, even though it's literally trash. It was like a tea bag package, that an individual tea bag had come in that we turned inside out, I guess, and put a seed in and like wrapped it up and then wrote J River on the bag. I'm like, this is obviously gold. Okay. This is obviously like how you find the super secret strain that everybody's going to want from here on out. Is it's like wrapped up in a bag of trash that says Jordan River on it.
Well, I appreciate that. The stroke of the ego. You know, I did have something like that recently, Coco, which was someone gave me some seeds at one of those events and I was so excited about this cross and they put it in a plain Ziploc bag. And I was like, I'm going to remember because I'm so excited. And then I proceeded to like, you know, dab out like fucking gram of rosin and smoke a bunch of flour. And I forgot what that strain was. So I ended up giving it to a member. I hope he finds something amazing with it. And I go, listen, man, I don't know what these seeds are. All I know is that I was very, very excited to pop these. I was so happy to get my hands on them. So maybe you should call it Exciting OG or something.
That's awesome.
But yeah, shout out to the unnamed crosses. Sometimes you forget. You got to write that shit down as soon as you get it. That's my new rule. That's my.
Well, I wrote J River and I figured that was enough. Which kind of suggests to me that I wasn't totally sure at the time maybe what it was, but I don't know. There was a lot of consumption going on and a lot of like chaos.
I just remember that day very well. Yeah. And the Afghan cherries by predicative breeding and the nice little vial. Yeah. Now pure breeding.
Yeah. And then I'm growing another seed I got while I was there, a Berry Blast F3. I'm pretty sure these are fem seeds.
Hey, no, they're regulars. Those are Sun God seeds. Shout out to Sun God, my man Sun God.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a little SoCal. He's a little SoCal breeder, dude. And he's just so nice. He's like a super, super nice guy. And he gave away seeds to our community. And he brought seeds to that meetup. I'm so glad you brought that up, that Berry Blast and the Dub Berry. Yeah, that's really cool.
Okay, so I pulled 2 seeds, and let's hope one of them is female.
Fuck yeah, they will be.
And then they will
be every time.
I got another seeds from that meetup. These are 2 seeds because, again, I'm not sure if these are fem or regs, but all I had was like a little piece, an index card that was folded up. And I remember talking to the guy, but I don't remember what his name was. And he had a big old vial of seeds that he was calling black cherry.
Oh,
that's all I know is I got them from a guy at your seed exchange. And if anybody's listening to this, they're welcome to claim credit here for this strain. But this is black cherry. Pretty sure they're reg seeds. So I'm going to grow 2 of them and hope one of them's female. So this are my little, and I'm growing one other seed. So I'm hoping to end up with 4 plants. But when, you know, you're growing a couple of strains that might be regs, you never fully know how many.
Sex test that shit. Rimrock, man. Rimrock gets back to you so fast. Code GrowCast. Shout out Rimrock Analytical.
Well, see, that's the other thing. We got a flip day in the Plant Train and Grow Challenge, which is October 1st. So one of the whole things about the Plant Train and Grow Challenge is we let everybody decide when to start their grow and just tell them, like, we're going to flip on October 1st. So
sure, because some people want to mainline. Some people are just going to pop seeds and go. I get that.
Exactly. But it's time for, I mean, I'm planning to mainline. And I mean, that's at least what I have been planning. And we're taping this on like the last day of August, basically. So I'm planning to pop these seeds today. And it's going to be tight, man. I got like 32 days or 33 days in order to pull off a mainline. But yeah, like you said, you know, we're also starting a grow that I've been consulting on for months, doing a radically different method, a sea of green, where no plant training really whatsoever, short veg time, really high plant density, and really, you know, short veg time, highly efficient on that side.
What size containers?
1 gallon. 1 gallon containers, Coco, of course.
Love how you said that.
You know, high frequency fertigation, as is my want. But yeah, 1 gallon flowering in 1 gallon container.
Jesus, how long are you going to veg them in that little pot?
Sure. So from the cloner to flowering in 2 weeks or less.
Oh my God. That's so sick. Why wouldn't you? That's what's fucked up about plant count, though, Coco, is like there's 2 things fucked up about our legislation with home grow. There's a lot of things fucked up.
Yeah, no, this is in a state that doesn't have a plant count limit. So we're able to chase sort of maximum efficiency. I agree. And I think that is maximum efficiency. I mean, we're going to be able to harvest sort of more good quality cannabis quicker in each one of those rooms than we would, you know, growing them out, bigger plants, vegging them a lot longer, investing all that energy in veg. But there's trade-offs there too. I mean, you need to be able to produce a hell of a lot of clones every run if you're growing in a style like that.
Yeah,
and
so
all of that needs to be taken into consideration. A lot more sort of dedicated to cloning side of the operation when you need that kind of a plant count. And, I've been consulting on another grow that is in a plant count limited state, and they're vegging for over a month, and trying to grow much bigger plants. So it's interesting to think about that in terms of efficiency. And at the commercial scale, the sod grow, I think, is absolutely more efficient. And the only reason we're doing a longer veg time than the other grow is because, we have to stay underneath that plant count limit. And it gets me thinking about my own little grow here at home and, what would be the most efficient way and sort of why do I want to grow the way that I want to grow? And there's a whole nother set of circumstances that come into mind. Like to do the plant count density that we're doing in the saw grow that I'm consulting on in my 4x4 tent, I would need 24 plants or something in my 4x4.
Right. Yeah.
Give you guys an idea of what that density really is going to look like. And setting up 24
Carpet
plants
of
in my
green.
4x4 is it's a big auto watering challenge. That's a big sort of challenge for me as a home grower from a lot of different perspectives. It would be hard to gain access to those plants coming in just from the front door when you're going to have 6-7 rows deep of plants in your space. How are you going to be able to sort of deal with them? And you'd be able to shave time, but instead of growing 24 plants, I'm thinking about growing 4 plants in the same amount of space. And I don't know. So it's interesting to think about why each of those strategies make sense in a different setting. And, intuitively, it absolutely does to me. And it's pretty deep into the analysis when you start to really figure out the reasons that different strategies make sense in different contexts. And thinking through problems like this just reinforce my understanding that every grow is different. Every grower's got different goals. Every grower's got different limitations on them. And there is not sort of one right way to solve this. Every problem's got or deserves an individual solution.
I love that take, dude. You're so right. And you've really extrapolated it before when you talk about efficiency. And this kind of goes back to the legislation thing, shortening that veg time with more plants, utilizing the power of the sun, and probably outdoor at scale, like auto flowers in ground is what this may look like. Like you said, I know you talk about breeding and getting some consistent cultivars out there in seed form. Maybe if you extrapolate that far enough, that's where we're going to go. But right now we're forced indoors and we're limited on plants, and it's just a different game.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that side. We're still really in the transitional period in terms of cannabis legalization. And it's becoming more and more sort of legal, almost, week by week, month by month, certainly year by year.
Hour by hour.
Yeah, but where this ends up maybe in a decade or two in terms of the regulatory regime for cannabis and how that affects the commercial landscape is absolutely very interesting. And in terms of an energy perspective, in a lot of places, and both of the grows that I'm consulting on that I've talked about, they're legally required to grow indoors.
Yep.
And we're basically legally requiring people to grow in ways that aren't super efficient in an overall horticultural sense. I mean,
sure.
When you just think about it in sort of global agricultural, horticultural perspective, very few crops are grown indoors under artificial light.
Can you think of some other examples?
Crops are grown indoors under artificial light. There's a lot of crops grown in greenhouses. Right. And greenhouses offer a lot of the benefits of sort of indoors, or they at least can in terms of, some degree of habitat manipulability, controllability,
100%.
Isolation from pathogens and pests and stuff like that. But you still take advantage of free light energy. And, agriculture is all about, basically has been for tens of thousands of years, or at least 10,000 years, been about sort of using plants to transform solar energy into, food energy or into other products that we use. And this whole indoor agriculture thing is usually converting fossil fuel energy into crops. So when you think about it in terms of like the direction of sustainable energy, it's going exactly counterflow of like all the other kind of pushes that we do in terms of being more sustainable with energy use. We knew how to grow really with solar power for 10,000 years. It's only in the last 100 that we figured out how to sort of grow crops with fossil fuels.
That is a really wild perspective, man. And I fucking could not agree more. That's incredible. And like you said, hopefully these things will just change. They have to change over time. And people are going to go outdoors. And yeah, the legislation is interesting. In Illinois, you have to grow indoors. You have to grow with LED lighting. Now, that's a choice that's more efficient, but it's still a choice.
Right. And I support that idea.
But I mean, still, it's still like, this is how you're going to grow. Not that they make medical patients do that, but it's interesting. It's just interesting when they step in and they say, you have to farm this way. Just really quick, though, you would be the guy to ask this.
Yeah.
Could you just list off the top of your head what other crops are farmed under artificial lighting indoors?
Oh, very few. There's some fruits and vegetables, primarily farmed in Iceland. Iceland's one of the largest markets for growing other crops indoors under artificial lighting because it's also one of the big places for doing Bitcoin mining and other stuff like that. They've got geothermal energy. And often one of their sort of interests is figuring out creative new ways to sort of convert that geothermal energy into stuff that can be exported out of Iceland. Cool. So using those kinds of energy forms, there's indoor cultivation in Europe where it's mainly driven by sort of densities and in some cases, access to fresh fruits and vegetables year round. There's some of that kind of stuff on really a niche market in Asia too. I work with a lot of horticultural lighting companies, and 95% of the market is cannabis. I mean, it just is. It's like cannabis is the crop that we grow indoors, and it's grown indoors because of the legal regime. Also, to some extent, because of the value of the crop itself. But the value of the crop is because of the legal regime. So it all gets back to, prohibition, essentially creating a value premium on cannabis that it doesn't deserve if it was any other crop. Cannabis is pretty easy to grow. It's pretty easy to grow in a field setting too. And, if farmers were growing it in a field setting at scale, like the price would be like other agricultural commodities between like 5 and 10% above the cost of production.
Jesus Christ. And if we can get that production to actually be like on point, regenerative in ground, that would be ideal.
Yeah, I mean, we're also sort of semi-spoiled like that. I think tomatoes are a good analogy for this because there's a lot of tomatoes grown at scale, and tomatoes are pretty cheap at the supermarket. And most of us get most of our tomatoes, the cheap tomatoes at the supermarket. But they taste like shit, and they're not good tomatoes.
Yeah, you told us how fucked up they are.
None of them are.
Yeah, they're methylated, and they cut them early on purpose. Yeah, you fucked me up about tomatoes.
Yeah, they're picked green and gassed to look to appear ripened, and they're hard and like flavorless and nasty. And if you invest the time and energy and love of horticulture to grow your own tomatoes. And everybody that's listening to this that has ever eaten or grown a homegrown tomato is like, hell yeah, preach, right? Like they're just like a different crop. It's like a totally different plant.
Better. Yeah.
And, I sort of see potentially cannabis developing like that, where there's like mass market cannabis and you could grow your own, and you could be, a craft producer or something. And maybe there'll be some craft companies to support that. But that's one sort of the tomato market.
That's where it's headed. And I would also like to say, though, there's a slightly, just an angle off of that. There's a slightly brighter future if, of course, I'm going to bring up, if it's more like coffee, right? Coffee is an interesting one because there's way more of a demand for coffee than there is for tomatoes. And people just seem to care about it more and resonate with it more, much like cannabis. You know what I mean? It actually means something to them. And to be fair, there's still
we tend to care a little bit more about the quality of our drugs, I think.
You're fucking right. Of course, dude. They could have possibly given us this consciousness that allows us to speak to each other. We gotta give some credence to the psychedelics, right? To the psychoactives.
Yeah.
So what I was saying is, coffee, you see this big push for specialty, grade. You see this big push for, you know, organic certified, rainforest friendly certifications. Like there is this beautiful scene happening in coffee. But to your point, the biggest producers are still kind of commercialized, like you said. But I hope that it goes more that direction where people don't have that spiritual connection with a tomato quite like they do cannabis and coffee. And the coffee industry has its problems, trust me, but it has this contingent of like specialists, you know, people who really, really care about the earth and the crop. So it's pretty cool.
I agree. I think a lot of that in coffee too has been very consciously created through, you know, marketing and supplier relationships and other things.
And it's unfair a lot of the time.
To cultivate that space for coffee as a premium product. And I think that would have to sort of, the same market would almost have to be developed for that as well.
Totally, man. That's what's fucked up is like the farmers down there doing this regenerative stuff were saying that like German banks had to come over and give them loans to research this stuff. Like they created that market. They fucking it cost a lot of money to get people to be like, oh no, here's specialty regenerative coffee. Just try it. Tell me if you taste a difference. Like it cost $100,000 or $100 million for this grant to this school in Colombia. It's nuts. It's crazy.
Yep. No, so this will be an interesting thing. And, you know, to a certain extent, growing cannabis indoors, and getting back to our sort of habitat month here, does provide some advantages. So, and it probably is producing a higher quality consumer crop in a certain sense than if it was a field grown crop by and large, servicing sort of the adult use, recreational, or the medical market. I would expect that prices would be much lower, but quality would be lower as well if that was the case. There's certainly more of an investment required to set up indoor agriculture.
Right.
And you know, the corollary of that then is there's an interest in maintaining the price structure somewhat higher than other crops because, you know, the producers have invested a lot into the capital for this. And so it'll be interesting to see how this market develops as different interests sort of stake their claim over the market. And I always advocate for home growers to continue to stake their claim and make sure that you're defending your rights to continue to produce as home growers, because, you know, different stakes will be interested in controlling the market.
Yep. And I think the more people that are growing and get growing, the harder it's going to be for them to repeal any of that stuff. The more we normalize it into society, the harder it'll be to take away from us if they ever want to do that.
Yeah. So you're defending our civil rights by growing your own. That's a wonderful angle. I love it.
1,000%, man. That's what we're all about. But listen, Dr. Coco.
Yes.
VPD.
VPD.
Again, no, this is circling back to the first part of this interview. I've been getting a lot of questions about stuff that we've kind of covered before.
Yeah, we've covered VPD. And we did a VPD, I think it's like a year and a half ago, maybe now, or even longer. We did an episode like dedicated on VPD that I still think is the one that gets me sort of the most, mentions from audience members that
cool.
find me from you.
Thank you. Well, that's wonderful then, dude. Let's dive in a little bit deeper and do a bit of a recap. Because again, this is something we've discussed and I kind of have a few new angles. So let's start where we started last time. It seems to me like most growers understand VPD, vapor pressure deficit. My understanding is the technical term is how much moisture is in the air versus how much moisture could be in the air, that vapor pressure deficit.
The deficit is a measure of sort of, how much could be, what's lacking, essentially.
Right,
so
the second part of that. Okay.
If the number is higher, that means there's a bigger deficit. That means the air is thirsty for water. If there's a lower number, that means there's less of a deficit. The air is more saturated.
Right.
So, right.
And so you look at this chart and it's basically a relationship between your temperature and your humidity. And there's all these VPD charts online, one for veg, one for flower. And it's a big range. Yep. And you punch in your humidity and your temperature and you're either in the green zone or you're out of whack. I kind of feel like a lot of home growers might be chasing this thing as kind of a red herring. Can I tell you why?
Yes.
Because someone was saying to me, I'm looking at this VPD chart and my humidity is here. Should I be dropping my temperature in an LED grow space to 72 degrees Fahrenheit? And I said, absolutely not. You want to keep this plant warm and happy.
Right.
Now, if you can adjust your humidity a little bit to get that in range, maybe you'll see some benefits. But I almost feel like people look at this chart and they want to completely switch up their grow when I'm still doing the arm test, which is what I was taught, which is you stick your arm in the canopy, your naked bare arm, and if it's comfortable for you, it's comfortable for them, sort of thing. And what do you think of that?
Yeah, I think the arm test is really for proximity to HPS lighting. Are you using the arm test for relative humidity?
100%. My hairs act as these antennae, and I can 100% pick up on it. No, what I'm saying is, I was just making a point. That people are kind of taking their physical sensations and throwing them out the window to match this chart, right?
Yeah, no, this chart, this is a perfect topic for sort of climate and habitat discussions, because there are a lot of reasons that we want to manage climate as, indoor growers. Only one of them is VPD. All right. So, and it's not the biggest. VPD primarily controls transpiration, and transpiration is important. So we don't want to be totally ignorant of it.
Right.
But it is not the most important thing about climate. Oh, my issue with VPD is like everybody shows up as a potential cannabis grower, knowing what temperature is and knowing what relative humidity is, right, more or less, and having no idea what VPD is. And once they learn about VPD, then they think it's the only thing that they're supposed to pay attention to in terms of climate. And it is not. It's not the most important thing. And Jordan River is completely right that the most important thing is temperature. Temperature is king in an indoor grow. And the first thing you want to do is make sure that you're getting your temperature into a correct range. At that point, you want to deal with your relative humidity. And there's a number of reasons that we want to manage relative humidity. One of them is transpiration, but others are like, mitigating the risk of mold.
Right.
So oftentimes we'll want to lower our relative humidity as, really thick, fat flowers start developing so that there's less of a chance of botrytis or WPM or other sort of problems like that. And that sort of safety issue. And the effect of that lowering of relative humidity would be, raising the VPD. But we're not doing that because we want to raise the VPD. We're doing that because we want to lower the relative humidity in order to mitigate the risk of pathogens. And, we're going to be somewhat aware of the fact that it is raising VPD, and we may need to make other compensatory changes to our grow in those cases in order to sort of keep the plants happy. So it's a good idea to be aware of VPD. It's a good idea to sort of understand that VPD affects transpiration. And if you have a really high VPD, that means the air is going to be pulling a lot of water out of your plant. Okay. And, sometimes you may end up with a really high VPD because you're lowering your relative humidity to mitigate the risk of mold. In that case, when your plant needs to give up a lot of water, you need to make sure that it's getting a lot of water. So you may need to water more frequently, or you may need to lower the electrical conductivity of the water if you're fertigating. And that's one of the comments that I made that I get so many sort of responses to from people that listen to that first episode. Because there's absolutely a relationship between electrical conductivity, which is the saltiness of the water that the plants are sort of, their roots are in, and VPD, which is the atmosphere and its ability to suck water out of the plant on the other side. So VPD affects sort of how quickly the plant's going to lose water to evapotranspiration. And EC affects how easy it is for the plant to get water. If the EC is really high, it's hard for the plant to get water. So oftentimes, when you raise the VPD, you've got to lower the EC of your water in order to make sure the plants can still sort of cycle enough water through themselves. And lowering the EC means you're providing a smaller dose of nutrients, but the plant's going to be processing a lot more sort of water and nutrients through itself. So having a smaller dose per volume is going to still end up getting sort of the same dose to the plant in the end. So those relationships, I think, are really helpful to understand when things change. But VPD should not be the thing that's driving climate in your grow tent. Temperature should, and then after that, relative humidity. And usually if you pay attention and set both your temperature and your relative humidity in range that I recommend or other guides recommend, you'll find that your VPD is spot on for sort of where it should be at that time.
Okay, so we do have a limited time here, but I want to make sure we kind of wrap up this topic and go back to what I was questioning about VPD is, what's the relationship between the leaf surface temperature? Because like I said, someone was talking about this particular situation with an LED grow. So how can this VPD chart be the same depending on your lighting, right?
Well, the VPD that matters is the VPD that the leaves are experiencing. So it's the leaf surface temperature and the relative humidity in the microclimate around the leaf itself.
Oh, okay. So then that reading is the VPD chart referring to ambient temperature incorrectly? It's not referring to leaf surface temperature, I know, because I've seen the chart.
The chart actually, I mean, different charts handle this in different ways. The chart that I see most people passing around does factor in either a 1 degree or a 2 degree drop in leaf temperature from ambient room temperature. It should. Some of the charts say so right at the top. This is like assuming, and it's showing you air temperatures, but suggesting that, the calculations are actually done off of leaf surface temperature, and they're assuming the leaf surface temperature is going to be 2 degrees Celsius below the ambient air temperature or 1 degree Celsius below the ambient air temperature.
Maybe I missed that, but that's interesting. So it does account for that. Because that's what I was thinking is like, well, if it's under HID, then like you're saying, all the transpiration is happening at the leaf. Wouldn't that be a different reading than if it was under LED?
To the extent that it's experiencing different VPD, because there's a different temperature there. If the leaf surface is hotter or cooler, that will affect the VPD. Absolutely.
Right, from an ambient perspective. So I don't know if I was being confusing there, but it made sense. Now you've cleared it up. And I understand DLI completely. I don't know if you said it that like clear last time when you just literally said it's the measurement of how much light it got in a day. Because now I'm never going to forget that. Another eye-opening episode, man. But let's wrap it up here. Plant training grow challenge. You want to talk about plant training for a second before we sign off?
Well, we did. I mean, we got into it a little bit and just thinking about, how long do you want to veg your plants? What's sort of the most efficient? Does it make sense to increase the density of your crop to shorten the veg time? And in a lot of large scale commercial applications, it absolutely does make sense to sort of increase the plant count to reduce the veg time.
You heard it, folks.
Like I was saying in my 4x4 tent, it would be a hell of a lot of work to put 24 plants in there. I don't think that would reduce the amount of work in my sense. It would probably shave some time. I mean, it would definitely shave some time off of my grow, but yeah, so you gotta think about how you're growing. In general, though, I think reducing veg time is a huge way to improve efficiency of your grow. And that's one of the things I think is cool about the Plant Training Grow Challenge is just to see when different people start their grows in order to be in position that they want to be on October 1st. And I'm trying to sort of white knuckle it here and be like, I'm not starting yet. It's going to be like almost September before I start trying to mainline a plant to flip on October 1st. But a lot of that is, thinking about how can we do this as efficiently as possible to save time? Because if we want to grow efficiently, reducing the veg time is pretty much your best bet for improving your gains. In terms of the amount of energy you're using to power your grow and to get to harvest.
1,000%, man. I like to see how everyone approaches it differently, like you said.
Yeah.
You got some big prizes lined up this time? What are you giving away?
Yeah, just in a day here on September 1st is probably going to have air after that we actually do our first giveaway. The opening giveaway is going to be here on September 1st. for everybody that started their journal so far. We're going to do another big giveaway on October 1st. I don't think we've announced our October 1st prize sponsor yet, but it's going to be a good prize. Everybody should be excited for it. We usually do our biggest sort of giveaway at the Flip Day giveaway for these challenges. Later on, after Flip Day, we're going to have a cool harvest contest or photo contest of the first flowers. So once the first flowers start to develop, we do a photo contest. Everybody can enter that for another cool prize. And at the end of the Plant Train and Grow Challenge, we award prizes for best journal, best grow-me, and best recovery. So
best recovery. That's great.
Best recovery. You know, we started doing that because it encourages people to share their disasters.
Yeah,
it
exactly.
encourages people to share their mistakes because then they're eligible for winning the best recovery prize.
That's really funny,
so
man.
It's cool to see people, you know, go through problems, challenges, whatever it happens to be, and recover from that.
That is really, really neat. I love it.
Yeah.
We do a butt of the month, of course, in the Discord, real simple. But then we do a worst of the month for the same reason, where it's like whoever got it the worst, like if they lost all their clones or whatever, let their seedlings die, they get that consolation prize. So that's really funny. You had the same idea. I like the recovery though, because that's cool. It's the comeback.
Yeah. And you know, the best recovery thing, I really think it keeps everybody rooting for each other, because you see one of the other growers in the challenge, like go through a problem, and then you're like, okay, it's not like you're trying to get the best recovery prize, right?
Right.
You're hoping to avoid the best recovery prize, but you really hope that like everybody else kind of can recover from whatever issues. And people really learn a lot about sort of how to recover plants that suffer some sort of setback, or what the potential setbacks are. You know, when really experienced growers win the best recovery prize, I think that always makes the newer growers feel better about themselves, and then realizes that, you know, it's common to struggle with some things and everybody makes mistakes.
100%, man. Well, we love what you're doing at cocoforcannabis.com and everything, Dr. Coco.
Yeah. And, you know, however you're growing, if you still got time, it's October 1st Flip Day. You can do a SOG, a Sea of Green run. We're also doing the Party Cup Challenge with this. And so if all you want to do is grow a plant in a party cup, you can sort of participate with the challenge that way. It's free to join. Every grower is welcome. We love seeing growers in different media doing different kinds of training styles. This year, we broke up the groups. We have the architects, are the people that have their training plans like in advance, and like if you're doing a main line or something, right? So you got blueprints that you're going to follow. We have the toppers that are just people that do like ad hoc topping to their plants as they go. We got the benders, people that primarily focus on like LSTing their plants. We have the strippers this year, which is our fun new category for people that like to do heavy defoliations. When we always have the misfits group, if you're not sure how you're going to be training or you don't feel like you fit into any of these other groups. And it's wild to see all the different ways. You know, we'll have several hundred people growing in this, and it's wild to see how different people sort of train their plants and grow in different media. And so even if you're not going to grow along with us, come on over and check out some of the journals here in a few weeks and see how people are doing, or as we get close to the flip date, October 1st.
Absolutely love it, man. Thank you for this exploration. This is a wonderful way to kick off Habitat September. And yeah, very eye-opening as usual. Let's get together again. We're going to be down in SoCal, San Diego. We have a Living Soil Masterclass with Alexandria Irons, and that is October 1st. And then let's do a meetup, man, either October 2nd, or maybe later that night on the 1st. Stay tuned, everybody. We'll at least grab lunch, Coco, if not like throw a whole big meetup.
Absolutely.
Does that sound good?
Yeah, we can see if you know, members of the audience might be able to join us someplace. That would always be fun. But I definitely want to hook up with the famous Jordan River, and had a lot of fun with you when you were out here last time. So I'm glad I got a little bit more warning on this trip.
Yes, that's true. I give you a couple of weeks instead of like 6 days. So let us know if you're interested in a meetup, everybody, and where we should do it. SoCal, San Diego, that whole area. I can't wait to see you. Love you, SoCal Gromies, and love you, Dr. Coco. You stay cool, man. You let us know if you need anything, okay?
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to let you know how these seeds do, man. I'm excited to be growing out my Jordan River seeds and, you know, the other seeds I got from them. So yeah, it's going to be fun. I'll be thinking about you a lot for the next few months. Yeah.
Fantastic. I just got to shout out, who did the Stankosaurus strain? Come on. You came out to the meetup. Anyways, we'll follow up. We'll follow up on that one. I'm sure we'll talk to you.
Yeah, let's follow up. And if anybody wants to claim the black cherry surprised that I'm growing here. Make sure you let me know, Jordan, if anybody sort of lets you know that that's them.
I got you, man. That's how these meetups go. It's crazy. Come on down. But yeah, thank you, Coco.
No, we'll have more fun.
Sounds great, man. Everybody out there, thank you so much for tuning in. That is all for today. Again, find all of the action at growcastpodcast.com/action. That's where you can see everything we're doing. And of course, cocoforcannabis.com for Dr. Coco's world. Today, we are signing off. That's all. This is Dr. Coco and Jordan River saying be safe and grow smarter. Bye-bye.
Grow love, everyone.
That's all for today, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you to Dr. Coco. Thank you to all of the listeners and members. Before we wrap it up, shout out to AC Infinity, the best grow gear in the game. Code GROWCAST15 saves you 15% at acinfinity.com. They've got the thick, sturdy tents with the thick canvas and the thick tent poles, the best tents in the game. They've got the fans that you need, the inline fans, the Cloud Ray oscillating fans now. Again, code GROWCAST15 for 15% off. The best quality grow gear you can find. They've also got lights and scissors and pots and hangers and so much more. But when it comes to the fans and the tents, there's no one else out there that does it better. The inline fans, the Cloud Line series, are fantastic. The S series is the simple series. Still comes with a 10-speed fan controller. And the T series comes with a controller that lets you automatically dial in your temperature and humidity. acinfinity.com, code GROWCAST15 for 15% off. They even have grow kits that come with everything you need to expand. Get that second veg tent, get that second flower tent you've been thinking about. Save with the kit and use code GROWCAST15, which now works on those kits, saving you extra money with the best gear in the game. acinfinity.com. They've been our partners for years. We brought these guys along a long time ago. They've really expanded and done a great job. acinfinity.com, code GROWCAST15. That's all for today, everybody. I appreciate you guys so much. As always, hit up growcastpodcast.com/action to see all the action. I hope you come and see us at a meetup or a class soon. We're doing the Cannabis Cup again at 3 Mile Farm. We're going to do a festival with Area 420. Stay tuned, everybody. All right, talk to you next time. Bye-bye. My hairs act as, these antennae